All right. So I need the clicker. I got the water. Maybe I have to stay. UHF1. All right. Can you still hear me? We'll walk out this way. All right. Can our Zoom friends still hear me? I don't know how to do a sound check with Zoomers.
I hear you loud and clear.
Look at that. All right. Lindsay, right? Lindsay, thank you so much. You know, you ever need another job or a second job, Brevard Public Schools. Not the best way to open, right? Those be those be fighting words these days, right? Just kidding. But thank you again for having me. Appreciate it and appreciate the very kind introduction. I am I've been with Brevard Public Schools a long time. Not only did I start my teaching career almost 3 decades ago, as a teacher at Cocoa Beach High School, but I feel very blessed. My wife and I raised our 3 kids here. They are all Melbourne High School Bulldog graduates, and they are off tackling the world. All 3 married now, so they're off the payroll. It's a lovely place to be. I highly encourage it, and we got a grandson, so that's like the best part. But pardon? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the kids get off, the grandson gets on. I don't know. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. But thank you for joining us on Zoom. Thank you to those who are here. I'm going to try and move through some of these a little quickly, because I suspect you're not a stranger to Brevard Public Schools and what we are very proud of over the last several years. Lindsay, we might need you again. It's turned it on. Did it go to sleep? There we go. And so I want to take a few moments to share with you things that we are very proud of across Brevard Public Schools, but more importantly, we hope our community is proud of. And I like to start with, Jim mentioned the Thrive by 5 program. Folks think that, okay, you don't start teaching kids until they're in kindergarten. Well, we used to not start teaching kids until they were in kindergarten. We realized we've lost 5 years of opportunity. And so a few years ago, actually, I had this vision for connecting with our community and our newest members of Brevard, the newborns across Brevard County. How do we promote literacy with our parents, even the day that they bring their newborn home? And so we launched this Thrive by 5 idea. If we could have every one of our kids reading ready by 5 years old, when they enter us in kindergarten, we could virtually eliminate any gap in proficiency from the time they start school. But every year that they have that they are behind in literacy, the struggle to get caught up increases. And so I reached out, I'm like, we don't even know who our kindergartners are when they're 4 before they come to us when they're 5, let alone when a child is just in its first days of being a Brevardian. And so I said, but there is a place that does know who they are, and it's called Health First, Stewart, and Parish Medical, right? And I reached out to the CEOs and I said, listen, we need your help. If you'll give us access to your parents that come into the birthing centers, we'll provide them with literature, this gift bag that has not only how to really be an advocate for your child's literacy, but we'll give them their first book. We'll give them a little bib and blanket that'll really solidify our partnership with you. And so you probably recognize the book, Brown Bear, What Do You See? We still have ours in our home, with teeth marks in it, but it's a great book to get kids launched in the commitment to literacy. So that's a Thrive by 5 program. Also, we launched a comprehensive mentoring program for our community to get further connected with our schools. And so if you're interested in just 20 minutes a week 20 minutes connecting with a young student, grade school, middle school, or high school, and helping them stay focused on learning and understand how choices and decisions impact not only today, but their path for the future, to help them set goals and to pursue them. We want to talk to you about being a mentor in our schools. All of the cost of background check and fingerprinting is covered, and we have an online kind of a training module to go through that comes with activities and handouts that you can take with you, so you go in equipped to have that conversation with our kids across our schools. And last night, actually, we launched our very first Parent Academy session, parents and educators partnering just to strengthen student behavior in our schools. And we actually, it was a simulcast experience. We've never done this before. We streamed it live from our boardroom where we had facilitators there, but it went out to multiple sites across the district at schools that had live staff there as well. So parents didn't have to come all to Viera. They could go to a local school in their area, and we were able to engage with parents across our district. Then we've got several other topics that'll be coming up in the near future as well. So the engagement that we have with our parents and our community extends far beyond kindergarten through 12th grade and at any one of our school sites. But when we think about the success of our kids in our schools, one of the first data points that we go to is graduation rate. How are our kids doing in preparation to go into high school? And we are part of the governor's graduation rate initiative. We are held to a very rigorous definition of high school graduation. Very proud that over the last 4 years, we have continued to increase our graduation rate and among all subgroups of kids. What that means is a student with disabilities, we look at how they're doing in their trajectory for graduation. Students who are coming from a home that is economically disadvantaged, living in the poverty level, students who are English language learners. In other words, they're acquiring English as a second language. And then also our minority students, Black and brown children, how are they doing in their trajectory of graduation as well? And I'm proud to say that every subgroup is improving over time across that as well. And you can see the performance of several of our, or all of our high schools there, and that we actually are one of the leading districts in the state in graduation rate. But also contributing to graduation, we would suggest there's a lot more to graduation than just the day of the ceremony. If you're a parent, sure, every day with our kid is important, but perhaps the most important day of their K-12 education is actually the day after graduation, right? That's where, okay, now this big wide world becomes accessible, and okay, let's go walk out all of the tools and preparation that we've had. And so we strive to invest more than just through the classroom inside our schools. One of those opportunities is dual enrollment. We have over 5,000 students right now taking advantage of college courses on Eastern Florida State campus, or at Florida Tech. We have an agreement with Florida Tech right down here, as well as if you're from North Brevard, our North Brevard kids aren't getting to Florida Tech, but they get to go to Embry-Riddle and take advantage of college courses up there. And so you can see in the top right-hand corner, we graduate over 400 high school students a year that also earn their AA degree from Eastern Florida State College. Now, you may be asking, okay, well, 400, is that good? How does that compare to other places? So I compare us to another school district south of us that starts with the letter B. I don't like to call them out, just like get you close. That school system is almost 3 times our size. And the last data I had, they graduated about 250 students with an AA degree. So when you can do that comparison, that gives you a better idea of how well we're doing in promoting, supporting, and guiding our kids towards 2 years of college earning by the time they leave us. But then we've also got our college earning programs within our schools. Cambridge, the ACE Cambridge program. That's an internationally recognized 2-year pursuing college equivalent designation, graduating about 150 students a year with a Cambridge ACE diploma. Then we have International Baccalaureate, graduating close to another 100 students who receive a internationally recognized 2-year diploma equivalent to the first 2 years of college. And then we have our state designations, the Scholar Diplomas program, where students go on a very college-bound pathway through high school, accelerated courses. They have to meet certain test requirements along the way. And if they meet all of these requirements, they earn from the state the designation of Scholar Diploma. But the state also has another great program or designation called the Merit Scholar, which is geared more for the student who may not necessarily be on the pathway to college, but on a pathway to workforce. And so it's important that we equip them with the skills, the experiences, and I'll show you in a minute, the credentials to go to the front of the employment line and be increasingly competitive. We have over 45 career academies. Jim, was last spring, we had a career and technical education program tour going around at every one of our high schools. And perhaps some of you got to take advantage of that. 45 academies. We have over 82 different industry certifications available for students to earn. We had a student from Palm Bay High School last year earn 21 of those 82 industry certs. Did like 2/3 of them on his own. We didn't even have the program out of school. He was just like, I'm going to go learn it. I want to take the exam. Will you pay for it? And we said, sure. And 21 credentials. When I shared that with workforce folks, business owners are like, we want his name. And I said, okay, okay, what are you willing to give for it? We have a very impressive career and technical education program across our schools, and our kids graduate with this designation. Over 1,000 kids with a Merit Scholar designation at graduation. But then we've got kids who did both. They went for the academic path, the Scholar Diploma designation and the Merit Scholar designation. Over 2,000 kids qualify for both. So if you do the math, you got 1,000 Scholar Diploma kids, you got another 1,000 Merit Scholar, you got 2,000 who do both. Then you add in your AA degrees across your IB, your Cambridge. We're graduating over 85% of our seniors every year with a lot more than just their high school diploma. And that's why we take seriously the day after graduation, because those additional credentials set them on a more optimistic path of opportunity and access to a very positive future. But if we pause for a moment and ask ourselves, hey, our kids are really impressive, let's be honest. They never cease to amaze us and rise to high expectations, but it takes someone to set the high expectations and to impact and inspire their lives to go after those very impressive opportunities across Brevard schools. And so when we take a look at the types of folks who impact the lives of our kids, yes, it's absolutely our teachers, amazing men and women across our schools and classrooms who invest themselves into the lives of kids every day. But it's also the entire BPS team. I share this experience when I'm on particularly a high school campus. I'll stop a kid in the hallway or whatever. Hey, let me ask you a question. If you could give a shout out to someone on this campus, a grown up on this campus who has helped you, who would it be? And always there's, teachers and sponsors and even administration. But I've had some unsuspecting shout outs. Mr. Ralph. Mr. Ralph, who's Mr. Ralph? He's our head custodian. Talk to me. Tell me what the story. You don't understand, Mr. Superintendent. It was after practice last week, and I realized I left my Algebra 2 book in my classroom, and the school was locked. I was pounding on the door. Mr. Ralph came and let me. He said, "What's going on?" He's like, "I get my Algebra 2 book and in my teacher's class. I got a test tomorrow." And the head custodian walked him all the way across campus, unlocked the classroom door, let him get his book, and he says, "Mr. Ralph saved the day. I was able to study for my test that night." And that's the kind of people who invest in our kids' lives. Absolutely the teachers, our educators, but it's the entire team. Similar stories about our cafeteria staff. Cafeteria lady is famous in some schools because she knows the names of the kids, and when they forget their money or forgot their lunch, she takes care of them and says, "Now I know where to find you. You better square up tomorrow." But kids remember that, and I bet you have some fond memories of those same folks. And so We are very blessed to have an amazing team of educators as a whole coming around in front of our kids. Here's a glimpse of some real live heroes in Brevard Public Schools. Our principal of the year on the far left, Miss Lovelace. She took Coquina Elementary School. That was a D school before COVID. And even through COVID, with all the interruptions and disruptions, Coquina Elementary School earned a B last year. That's impressive. Then we have on the far right, Miss Grugan. She's our assistant principal of the year. When people speak of Miss Grugan, you know what they say? She's just the best human being I've ever known. That's the kind of leaders, the kind of people we want in front of our kids. That positive role model making an impact. And then, of course, we have our employee of the year, Officer Emperado. I think she knows every little kid's name at Ocean Breeze Elementary School. And if the kids don't get a hug or a high five from her in the morning, they got to see her on the way out in the afternoon. And she is just so giving of her time and investing in them. Miss Wicker, 7th grade science teacher at Jackson Middle School. She was a park ranger. And so it wasn't too hard. You know, you'd have a couple families come through and you're trying to teach the little ones about ecology and the synergy of the life cycle and photosynthesis. But she said, wait a minute, this isn't enough. I'm going to give up my park ranger suit, and I'm going to go put on my teacher suit. I'm going to inspire the lives of hundreds of 7th graders in science. Now, that's a tough crowd, folks. It's hard to get 7th graders jazzed about science, but I tell you what, she's doing it, and she was recognized by her peers and is our teacher of the year. And so the reality is that education has been a priority in the state of Florida of our current administration. Certainly, you've been made aware that our governor has prioritized beginning teacher salary. We are at the bottom of the barrel across the nation in beginning teacher salary. He says that's unacceptable. And I appreciate, and we appreciate, him elevating beginning teacher salary as a priority across Florida. Just few years ago, beginning teacher salary was barely over $39,000 a year. Very difficult start to a career after 4 years of college. But I'm very pleased to say that this year, our beginning teacher salary is $48,725. It's more competitive starting career salary when exiting college. But as much as we've been able to elevate the beginning teacher salary, and the state has prioritized that for funding, what there has not been funding to do is address our teachers who are already at that beginning teacher salary with 14, 15, 16 years of experience. And I put it into perspective like this. I was one of those beginning teachers at Cocoa Beach High School, albeit a long time ago. But I'm telling you, when I meet students across Brevard that had me as their algebra teacher at Cocoa Beach, the first thing I say is, are you okay? Because I was not running for teacher of the year. I'm telling you, my first year, I was surviving. I was white knuckling it from one day to the next. And if you asked for my lesson plans tomorrow, right now, I would say I can give them to you in the morning. And there were days, I remember them very vividly, that at the end of the day, at about 2:45, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the students are gone, the hallways are quiet. Miss Dillingham's classroom was across the hall, like from here to those tables. And I would walk into Miss Dillingham. She was a math teacher as well. I was in B101. She was in B112. I would say, Miss Dillingham, today was a colossal failure. I have no idea if my kids learned 1 + 1 = 2. And I don't know if I can go back in there tomorrow and make up what I messed up today. She says, you're going to be fine. Get the chair, pull up next to my desk. Let me show you my lesson plans. She says, here's my handouts. Go make copies, use whatever you need. We taught similar subjects. And she was very giving of her time. And at that time in her career and my career, she was like that 16-year experienced teacher, a master teacher. And not only was she inspiring, you talk to a kid who had Miss Dillingham, she's a legend educator, but she was also investing in me as a young educator. But if that scenario were true today, and it is in some of our schools, pick a school and I guarantee, I got a teacher in their 14th year and I got a teacher in their first year, and their classrooms are right next to each other, and they'll share a similar situation. What separates them by salary is a few $100s. And so we're not able to compensate. If you look back at this slide, Brevard has the third most experienced teaching workforce in the state. And we know experience matters. You ask any of our private sector, they recruit it and they compensate for it. And right now, we certainly want to recruit it, but we can't compensate for it. And so we're faced with the reality of wage compression that is making us uncompetitive in this very difficult workforce market. In addition, our legislature said, you know what, we raised beginning teacher salary, that's good, but it's not good enough. We need to, for our government workers and our school employees, our hourly wage folks, we need to accelerate the $15 an hour minimum wage. This year, every school district has to go to $15 an hour. And I will hand it to them. They increased our funding to be able to do that. Do you know what the cost was to get to $15 an hour? It's almost $6 million. What that means is I had a lot of employees earning less than $15 an hour. But I also had a lot of employees that were at 15 or above. And we've not been able to do anything to keep them at a staggered level. And so another true scenario, head custodian and an entry-level custodian. Head custodian starts at $13.65 an hour, or did before the $15. My entry-level custodian was $12.39, separated by $1.40 an hour. Right now, they both make $15 an hour. And so my head custodian, Mr. Ralph, remember, he's supervising a team of 8 or 12 custodians, and they're all making the same hourly rate because the revenue we received helped us address the beginning hour or the minimum wage, but not the wage above the pay scale. And so we're faced with the real challenge of wage compression, which is making us difficult to be a competitive workforce choice in our community. And most of all, we're struggling to keep Brevard's best for Brevard's kids. Average teacher pay, just another benchmark, just to put in perspective, average teacher pay, although our beginning teacher pay in the country is much more competitive. We were at the bottom. Now we're actually in the top. I think we're 19th in the country in beginning teacher pay. Done a great job of elevating that. But our average teacher pay is still ranked 48th in the nation. What you see is everything coming up from the bottom and then the compression bringing the top, holding it at a ceiling. We're not able to keep those experienced teachers. The teachers we're struggling to keep the most right now, right here in Brevard, are those 12, 13, 14, 15-year teachers. They're just firing on all cylinders. But yet they've got enough work life that they can walk away from the school system, Florida retirement system, and plan for their future because private sector sees how competent and sees their expertise. In addition, I'll show you in a minute, there's a couple districts that neighbor us that have a revenue source to recruit our teachers to them and give them more money. And so it's not a far commute to go to Orange County and get a very impressive supplement to leave Brevard. So real quickly, it has been suggested that, wait a minute, Brevard Public Schools, you received $43 million this year from the legislature. Why are you talking about the need for more revenue to address wage compression? You got all this money. That is a true statement. We did receive it. It's the largest increase in funding that we've received from the state in a long time. But what has to be said in the same sentence, it is also the highest amount of mandates that have come with that money that we have seen from the state. Let me break it down real quickly. Over $14 million of that 43 is devoted at what we call categoricals. Those are specified pots of money that could only be used for what they're designated. I can't take those dollars and use it for compensation in my hourly wage folks. I have as a later slide, if you're interested, a breakdown of that, because people will know 14 million, that's a lot of money. Are you serious, Mr. Superintendent? The state's telling you how to spend that much of that money? Yes, they are. And I can show you line by line what it is. And then the state, also a new initiative, the Family Empowerment Scholarship Program. If a family meets a household income threshold, they qualify for a voucher to then help pay for their child's private education. Did you know your taxpayer dollars are helping offset the cost of private education? And so That's the priority of the state. I understand it. We accept it. But you can't say that you got that whole $43 million when almost 8 million of it is just a pass through, and we have to give it to these other initiatives. Same with charter school growth. Charter schools are growing just like Brevard Public Schools is growing, and we get additional dollars for new students, and so do charter schools. And so $7 million has to go to charter schools. You can't say you got $43 million when another 7.2 million has got to go to charter schools. And so you've got to take the time to understand where does all the money have to be prioritized. So really, it only left $13.6 million for the district to work with. But then on that, we had to pay for the minimum wage increase. Remember, I said it was about $6 million, $5.7 million. And the state required all districts across the state to make an increased contribution to the Florida retirement system. We are happy to do that and want to do it because we want the pension plan available as for our teachers, our staff, certainly for their benefit, but also as a recruitment tool. But it costs money. And so at the end of the day, that $43 million comes down to $4.5 million. And some say, wait a minute, $4.5 million, that's still a lot of money. And it is. But when you have 8,800 employees, a 1% raise for 8,000 plus employees is $4.5 million. And so when you think about a modest, reasonable cost of living increase or raise, $4.5 million takes up 1%. And we haven't even started talking about how do we fix the wage compression. And so that's what left me to have to take to my school board a recommendation. We don't have a budget problem. We have a revenue problem. Because if it takes $4.5 million for a 1% raise to tackle wage compression, we validated with Carr, Riggs, and Ingram. They came in and did a study of our wage compression issue. They said, listen, we're never going to get it down to $1, but it's not a millions of a dollar of problem. It's a tens of millions of dollars to get this corrected. And so the school board agreed, and they said, we've got to put this out to our community. And so on November 8th, our community will have the opportunity to weigh in on a referendum for a 1 mil increase on property tax. And that 1 mil of revenue will be used predominantly to address the wage compression issue. Let me break it down real quickly. 80% of the revenue will go directly to employee compensation. It'll address wage compression for all employees, but it will not go to 7 people in the organization. Number one, the 5 school board members will not benefit from $1 of the millage. Number 6, the school board attorney will not benefit from $1 of this millage, and the superintendent will not benefit from $1 of the millage. It is for our employees, and that's how it should be. I'm on the road sharing this information all the time. I want to never suggested or said the superintendent was advocating for himself. My employees are more important than that. And 20% will go directly to student programs, and I'll break that down a little bit further. All of this information is on our website. Some have suggested, hey, we've heard about this millage. There's no plan. The school board doesn't even know what they're going to do with the money. That's far from the truth. It is completely broken down in this presentation, but also on our website, available to the entire community. Here it shows what the dollar amount is. Compensation, 80% is about $43 million. I'll break it down even further than that in a second. 16% will go to student programs, or 8.6 million, and about $2.2 million will go to technology. Let me explain a little bit more. The top bucket, the 80% then is broken down into 3 parts. 83% of that 40-some million dollars, 36 million will go directly to employee compensation. About 4.5 million will go to supplements. You may ask, what's a supplement? Did you play sports in school? Were you involved in future problem solvers or Odyssey of the Minds, maybe your kids? How about robotics? How about makerspace? Maybe your child was in a teacher's class and they were the department chair. We give a supplement to all of those different types of extra duties. I was a high school soccer coach when I was at Cocoa Beach for 5 years, and I loved coaching. It was such a great connection with kids, but it was also a very effective training program to be an administrator. I'm not sure who learned more about themselves, my kids about soccer or me about being a leader. But my wife said she loved that I coached, but she said, hey, would you do a math problem, Mr. Math Teacher? How much are you making an hour to be a coach? And I said, oh, that's a good question. Let me break this down. It was $1.49 an hour at the end of the season. That was back when minimum wage was about $7.25 an hour. And so she says, you know, you do better working at McDonald's in the evenings and on the weekends. I said, yeah, but it wouldn't be as fulfilling as coaching kids. And so supplements have only increased by about 10% since then, 20 years ago. It's time that we increase our supplement. That $4.5 million would allow us to increase our extra duty supplements by 50%. And so our coaches would actually be better compensated for the time they're spending inspiring our kids' lives. 2.8 million we put aside for additional recruitment and retention efforts, so that we can be the most competitive choice to put the best in front of our kids. Then for student programs, you can see we've prioritized about $5.2 million for career and technical education. Very excited at some opportunities we'll have if this revenue is available to expand our CTE programs, but also for our performing arts and STEM, as well as athletics, and to enrich some of our gifted program opportunities for students. Here, real quick, school-based additional staffing, $3.5 million. You might say, wait a minute, I thought this was going into people's pockets. It is, but we have a need for some additional staffing in our schools. Do not be mistaken. This is not staffing for the district office. We're not trying to create more positions, quote, at the top. Currently, our guidance counselor student to counselor ratio is 400 to 1. At social workers, we only have less than that right now. Social workers across the entire district, and the needs of students are greater than they've ever been before. The National Association for School Counselors recommendation is 250 to 1. And so we would use those dollars to improve that staffing ratio in our schools. And then a little over $2 million for technology, classrooms of the future. That's a current initiative. It's funded last, but it is probably one of the most inequitable aspects of our schools right now, because I have schools that are newer with technology that would rival this room. And I have schools that are 50 plus years old that look embarrassingly too similar to schools that are 20, 30 years old in technology. And this would help us tackle that equity gap. So what is a mill? Real quickly, our real estate community certainly understands millage and how it's assessed against property. 1 mill would be equivalent to $100 per $100,000 of assessed value. You're very familiar with assessed value versus market value. We just got our millage tax roll about 2 months ago. And I'm in my current home for 6 years now. My market value is really nice. My assessed value is less than half of what my market value is. And folks ask, wait, how can that be? Well, it's called Florida Save Our Homes. Your assessed value can only increase by 3%. This year, I believe the market value increase was over 15 to 18%. So the assessed value isn't keeping up with the market value. That's a good thing for those of us who have been at Brevard a long time. That's good. But we need to keep in perspective of how that mill affects it. And so the median assessed value of a single family home in Brevard is only $153,000. So the average homeowner would experience $153 taxable increase from one year to the next if this millage were to pass, or approximately 42 cents a day. This gives you a historical look of our millage for just school board. I know that there's municipal and county millage as well. This is just your school board millage. The discretionary has been flat for the last decade plus, so has the capital outlay. But interestingly, the required local effort, or the millage that goes to contributing to our operating budget, our legislators have actually reduced the millage every year. Now you might ask, how does that, is your budget going down? No, but statewide property value, or the pool of property being assessed is going, because we're in a growing decade. That's a great thing. And so the legislators have been able to push down the millage because it has maintained the same budget as the previous year. But that is a savings to us as homeowners across Florida and certainly Brevard. And so if you add a mill to this year's assessment, total assessment of 5.495, it would go up to 6.495 and still be less than what it was 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago. Here, this graph gives you a depiction. The districts in blue represent those that already have a millage for compensation. School systems that have a millage for compensation. I mentioned Orange and Indian River. They both have a millage for compensation. Virtually any one of our folks who live in Brevard could commute to one of those two districts and take advantage of that. And so we are struggling to be as competitive with those districts. A millage, folks want to know, how long is this going to last? Well, it is statutorily has a 4-year limit before it has to go back to the voters and for them to vote to continue or renew that tax. And so here's the ballot language. It's on page 2 of the ballot and would encourage you to be familiar with it. And my objective in doing these conversations is just to ensure that our community is informed and understands the decision, understands the what, the why, and the how, so that when we pick up our ballot from the mailbox or we go to the ballot booth on November 8th, we make a well-informed decision for us as a community, because you know how important our public schools are to our community, for our kids, but also for the growth, the economic development, and the expansion of our community. And so with that, I just summarize the what, the why, the how like this. The purpose, the why is to keep Brevard's best for Brevard's kids. The what is every dollar raised through this one mill will stay in Brevard County. You may say, well, wait a minute, all of our millage stays in Brevard. No, it doesn't. Those legislatively assessed millage, those dollars go to Tallahassee, and less than $1 for every dollar we send up comes back to us in Brevard. You may ask why, that's another conversation. And then there's the how. The assessment will begin a year from now, and it will be overseen by an independent citizens oversight committee. Community members made up of community members, overseeing every expenditure and ensuring that the school district is spending the dollars the way the ballot has said, and that we've laid out to our community, holding us accountable and ensuring transparency. And so if I have the gift of a little bit more time, would love to open it up for some questions, and happy to provide you some answers. And I think, sure, or I think it is 2:42. I want to turn it back over to President.
My name is Catherine. I'm a mom to I'm a mom to three. I don't even know how many kids I have. Three.
There you go.
Thank you. Is that better? I know we have people on Zoom. Wonderful. My name's Catherine Rudolph. I'm a mom to 3 children that are in the Brevard County schools. I work at Florida Tech. I run the Women's Business Center at Florida Tech. And in my past career, I was very involved in political campaigns and running campaigns around. And I am part of an effort of local business leaders to ensure that this millage that Dr. Mullins has presented to you all today passes. And there are a few things that in his official capacity that he can't say. So I like to stalk him a little bit and follow him around where he goes.
In a good way.
In a good way, and say some of the things to our community members that he is not able to say. So the first thing that I would like to share with you, and I don't know, can I plug this in anywhere? I have one singular slide if it's possible. I don't know if it is, but that's okay.
We need Lindsay.
The first thing that I'd like to share is that, as he mentioned, the legislature has done a fantastic job of making sure that it looks like they are always lowering our taxes. Our politicians in Tallahassee have been very good at that. But what that has done is shifted a little bit of the burden to local communities. And as he outlined, we already have 18 communities. 18 communities that have implemented a millage. This is actually new for Brevard County. This is new. The other millages that you get assessed on there are from the state and are required by the state for that local contribution. This is the first time ever or in a while? Ever?
First time ever. on
First
Millage.
time ever that we are going to Brevard County voters asking for something additional to support our schools. So I think that's really important because it is a little bit of a shift in the responsibility of who's taking ownership over our local school districts. And this is a great chance for Brevard County voters to step up and take that ownership, support our teachers, support our critical staff. The second thing that I really want to bring up is this is not a problem that is just affecting parts of the community or problem schools or whatever. My children attend Freedom 7 Elementary in Cocoa Beach, arguably one of the best schools in the county. It's been one of the best schools in the state multiple times. We have lost teachers due to pay. We had my son's teacher last year got a job for a commercial space organization of some part, and the students were so excited for her when she told him at the end of the school year. And my heart as a parent broke. She's in one of the best schools with some of the best teacher support, wonderful administrators. She loved her job. You could tell she loved her job. She can go make a heck of a lot more money being someone's assistant or a communication support staff or whatever it might be in the private sector right now. And she loved teaching. She wanted to. She was in tears at the end of the school year. We had another teacher from Freedom 7, again, best school in the county, one of them, arguably. Husband was already making the commute to Orlando for his job, so she got a job in Orlando Public Schools because it just made sense for them. This is not just affecting some people. And for those of you who are selling homes in Viera, let me tell you, the bus problem is a problem. There were plenty of families that were expecting bus routes and drivers, and whether they've been filled, I can't say for sure or not, but it is a problem. Our families, and as somebody who runs We Venture Women's Business Center, keeping working parents in the workforce, it is critical that we then have the support to make sure that our kids can get to school and make it as easy as possible for our workers to be able to work in their work. And then the third thing that I'm going to say, we really didn't think a campaign was going to be necessary. This millage has really broad support. We actually had some polling that was done before the school board even presented this to, before you presented it to the school board, to see if there's support in the community, because why put something forward if it wasn't going to be well supported? And it was. It received really well positive feedback in the 60s. And we didn't think that we would need then to do a campaign like this. But in August, there were 8 other counties that were on the ballot. Why they went in the primary, they did not ask my advice, but they went on the ballot in the primary. And all of them passed except for one. The one that failed is Hillsborough County, one of the largest counties in the state. And it too went into the election feeling like it had really strong support. The community thought they were doing okay. And they had a few vocal local elected officials who were against the proposal. They had a little bit of turmoil between the teachers union and the school board, which thankfully we do not have. We have the full support and they've worked very well together to get to this point. But in the final couple of weeks, while those votes were being collected, I mean, in the final month, we could see when we looked at the results, the drop off from, it went from 54 support, 46 against, and it flipped by the time election day came. They lost by less than 1% and a couple hundred votes. So Larry McIntyre in the back, who you might know is a dear friend and colleague of mine who's very involved throughout the business community. We have volunteered a lot of our time to follow around Dr. Mullins and talk to community leaders like you and those of us joining on Zoom about the importance of making sure that this ballot measure passes. And what that is going to take is a positive vote yes campaign. I would love it if the rest of our community rallies behind us and we show nothing but strong support and have great voter turnout, and this passes by 60+%. But if we have a few local individuals who are loud and have an influence who want to start speaking out against it, I would love to have the ability to counter that with a positive vote yes. And as we've mentioned, it's not appropriate for the district or the school board members or Dr. Mullins in his capacity to be encouraging anyone to vote yes or no. Their job is to inform the public. So I'm here to ask for your contributions and your support to help fund a vote yes campaign so that we do not wake up on November 9th regretful that we did not do all we could to ensure that this passes for the safety, the security, the future of our children and our teachers and our schools. We have a QR code up on the screen where you can give. I have some handouts here. All of the money that we raise is going directly to, like I said, primarily digital advertising. That's just so much more effective and cost effective. And the more we raise, that means yard signs and that means all the fun stuff that people love to have too. But our primary goal is to target those likely voters and make sure that even, yes, Republicans, Independents, Democrats, if you're a likely voter, I would love for you to vote yes. And that's what our ask is here today. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, make sure that we really do get turnout and strong support for this. And then I'll open it up now if there's any questions.
Let me, we have a few more minutes. Let me see if I can. Everybody's watching, so I'm gonna do my best to look like I know what I'm doing with technology. Yes, I found it here. Let's see. I can't hear anything. No, I don't think that's a question. With all the new homes, aren't you getting a lot more school tax? And then you asked and got a sales tax increase last year. Let me, fine, okay. Let me I'll address both of them, a lot more school tax. So, yes, the question from the Zoom audience. So the cumulative property value of Brevard has gone up. And so the required local effort, if you remember back the blue bar graph, that generates more revenue, but you also saw that the millage went down. So the reality is that it went down this year more than 3%, than the 3% increase in assessed value. So the homeowner who's had their home more than a couple of years actually saw less tax go to the school board in that blue bar, but then those new homes, yes, would generate more revenue. But all of those dollars go to Tallahassee, go into the big pot in Tallahassee, and then they send back the dollars. And that's part of what made up that $43 million I went through about halfway through the presentation. Does that hopefully that makes sense. So yes, that's why I would suggest the state was able to increase funding to public education by as much as they did. That's part of the reason they were able to say, this is the year to go to $15 an hour. We're going to have to give more money. This is the year we're going to give another, I believe it was an additional $100 million statewide to beginning teacher salary, but it was predominantly in that categorical or mandates frame, not as discretionary dollars to the individual district. So if hopefully I answered your question, I think, Patricia. So if not, jump back on and clarify your question if I did not address it. The second question was the sales tax. Yes, in 2014, our community did approve a half-penny sales tax for the capital budget for Brevard Public Schools. And it was just renewed in 2020. So it was actually 2 years ago. And it was approved for 6 years. It's a half-cent sales tax on taxable goods and services that as a tourist destination, non-Brevard residents also contribute to that revenue. There are very tight restrictions on how sales tax revenue can be spent. It has to be spent on capital or capital infrastructure. I cannot use sales tax revenue for salaries. It's not allowed in statute. So the sales tax cannot help us with our current situation or reality of the wage compression issue. The reason the sales tax initiative was brought to our community is because about 2 decades ago, the school board at the time took on about $800 million of debt to address school growth and infrastructure renewal. And with the declining values of properties during the recession, our capital budget reduced such that we didn't have enough money to make our debt payment and keep our schools renewed. And so the sales surtax helped offset that reality. Folks asked me 2 years ago, okay, Mr. Superintendent, when is the sales tax, if ever, going to go away? And I said then, and I continue to say, the plan is one more renewal for sales surtax. And then I would suggest the school district doesn't need it any longer because we'll have paid off that debt and we'll be able to use that debt payment towards capital renewal, and that'll go away. So we have 4 years left in this round of sales surtax. I would suggest, looking at the projections now, we would need one more renewal to stay on a positive path with capital, and then we would not need it again. But admittedly, that's 10 years out. But that's how I have planned for it financially for Brevard Public Schools. So hopefully I answered your questions, Ms. Pat. You, of course, are welcome to reach out to me personally. Oh, she did ask another question. Yeah. She's a very attentive student. Good job. Good job. She said, so wouldn't the new funds also go to Tallahassee first? Actually, no. They're raised here and stay here. Tallahassee cannot take 1 penny out of the revenue that we raise for our own millage initiative. It has to stay here. So great. Thank you for asking that question. Nope, I have asked it multiple times myself, and I have been given every assurance that every dollar raised here stays here. The other reality is because it's a voter approved initiative for operating budget, it has full discretion of the district to use how it wants to propose to the community. The reason I say that is because right now, in current legislation, I believe the number is now 19 different pieces of legislation that guides how we can spend dollars on teacher salaries. So the most recent is for every dollar I spend on a veteran teacher, I have to spend at least 75 cents on a beginning teacher salary. The problem with that model is we never get out of wage compression. It's not enough of a gap. But with this millage initiative, we are not bound to the legislative guidelines of that distribution of funds. And so if you go on our website, brevardschools.org, we have a banner, it talks about the millage. You go to that website, you will see this presentation, any other presentation we've made. It has an FAQ. In addition, it shows specifically how every dollar will be laid out, including what teachers would receive as their supplement to their pay for the millage initiative, as well as our hourly wage employees. It's all presented on our website, and would encourage you to go there and share it freely. We want our community to understand. Any questions here?
Of it, just heard of it.
Yeah.
Well, to help us right now is make this aware. In addition to this, there's going to be statewide constitutional amendment, one of the countywide proposals for heal the environmental land, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of county charter review. So there's going to be a lot on the ballot. What tends to happen is when there's a lot, people will skip it and they'll decide, okay, I don't know what's going on, or they'll do the I don't know what's on. So communicating to your network, to your friends, colleagues, family, or neighbors, that those the outside of this and letting them know how critical this is to Brevard. We don't want to see the drop off for the period of ballot.
And so, where we just, the sample ballot was released, I think yesterday. This referendum is on page 2. It's a 4-page ballot this year, 2 pieces of paper, front, back, and then front. It is at the bottom of the back of page 1. So it's on page 2 of the ballot, kind of in the middle section. And it looks just like the ballot language I had up on the screen. Yeah.
Can't wait to tell Mullins, thank you for answering. My internet just went down after you answered her third question. She's our immediate task president.
Well, she can reach out to me again.
Oh, Guaranteed. I didn't see anything, and I don't even know if it's appropriate about safety.
We built safety into the sales surtax initiative. So if you look at our distribution, also on our website, so the sales surtax, we've actually, for the last now 8 years, we have put money towards hardening our schools. And so it's continued to be built into the sales surtax revenue for the next 4 years. And it will likely continue to be in there for the final round of sales surtax, if I have anything to say about it. So good question. We would have had the opportunity to consider security for the millage, but given the tens of millions of dollars we had already dedicated in sales surtax, and it would be taking dollars away from the wage compression issue, we felt like we had an appropriate balance of the distribution of dollars. No, great question. Yeah, listen, after what happened in Texas at the close of last school year, it is front of mind on all of us. Any other questions? Any other questions in Zoom land? All right. Well, again, please feel like you can reach out to me. I'll come to any small group you have. If it's a ladies happy hour group, I'll talk with 5, 15, 50, or 500. It's just important that we make sure our community understands all of the fact that if you have another civic organization you're a part of, HOA, a church group, I am nonpartisan in the presentation, obviously. So if there's groups that you would like me to talk to, and I don't need an hour, I can do it in 15 minutes. Please feel like you can reach out to me. I'll give you my cell phone number real quickly, 321 604 2944. 321 604 2944. You are welcome to call, text. Please leave me a message if you've called that number for the first time. Because if I see the number without ID, I think that you want to sell me an extended warranty on my vehicle. So just leave the message, hey, was at the Realtors presentation, want to talk to you more. And I will definitely call you back. 321 604 2944. And I'm sure Catherine and or Larry would love to give you their contact information too. So thank you so much, Jim. You've been very gracious. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure you speak for everybody here. I want to thank you for taking the time, everybody here, to come out and give this important information and deliver it. And my only question that was going to be asked was, how are we going to get this out in front of everybody? That was addressed really well. It was very thorough, but more importantly,